Hello and welcome back to the AGRIMINDS podcast. Today I have Alex Lowery with me. She is going to be one of our speakers at the AGRIMINDS Summit in March 2026. And we're going to be talking about time mastery. We're going to be talking about how to prioritize and the messy in the middle. How do we navigate different seasons and the priorities and the demands that come with each unique season of life, in our businesses, and all the things. So, Alex, welcome to the After Minds podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Kacee. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. And I told you right before I hit record, for some reason, I'm kind of nervous. I don't know why. I never get nervous before I hit
Well, that
record.
makes two of us.
I don't know what's up. I don't know if I've had too much coffee or if I'm feeling like I might get called out. Maybe that's the Maybe that's the thing here. I do because, like, I feel like I have to practice what I preach a lot, and so to be talking about time mastery and prioritizing, it's like sometimes I do feel like I lead people on a little bit and making them think that I've got my shit together, but I actually struggle in this area a lot, and it takes a lot of intentional effort to stay organized, to show up intentionally, and I will just say it right now, I screw up a lot. There are
Oh,
so many
you
days.
and me both. I mean, I don't like everybody's human. Nobody's gonna be perfect at it. And honestly, when you called me and said, "This is the topic I want you to speak on," because it was not one of my normal topics, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like imposter syndrome here. Like, how am I gonna, walk through this with other people?" But, I think that's where the clarity comes, is from you and me. We've walked through a lot of these messy middles. And so I don't come into this as saying I'm perfect and I've got my shit together. I'm coming into this as, I'm right here alongside with you and let's figure it out together.
Yeah, well, that's exactly why I wanted you to speak on this, Alex, because and same with Greg and Lauren as well, is that I'm not saying that we are the experts, although Greg and Lauren are really freaking knowledgeable about the topics they're speaking on, and I know you are as well. But I think it's more so just coming from a humble place of like, listen, I don't always have the perfect answer, and I'm not up here to tell you, here's what you need to do. And as if you follow this plan, everything's gonna go hunky dory. Because listen, weather doesn't care what we're doing, markets don't care what we're doing, 2-year olds don't care what we're planning, right? Like stuff
Preach.
does not go the way that we want it to, as good as the plan may be. And I think that's why I was so drawn to you, is that the genuine, the humbleness, like, listen, I'm not up here to tell you I have all the answers, but here's what I've gone through, here's my story, here's what's worked for me, and I just want you to know you're not alone, and I want you to know that everybody deals with this stuff, and we're opening up for dialogue. Like, we're willing to have the conversation, and that's where most people don't know how to start, right? Like, I think a lot of people acknowledge it
Yes.
in their mind that something's not quite aligned or in tune, but we don't know how to start the conversation. And that's my goal for the summit, is just to open the door for conversation. And so before we dive into all that, can you tell people who you are? A little bit of background. Who are you? Where are
I
you?
would
What do
love
you do?
to. Yeah, of course. So, like you said, my name is Alex Lowery. I am located in Southwest Mississippi in a small little town. My family is originally from here, all of my grandparents, as well as my husband's family. I am kind of an oddball in that I did not primarily, grow up on a farm. Um, ag, the ag industry was always kind of part of my life. My grandfather grew up on a dairy. My husband grew up on a dairy here. We're in dairy country down this way, or used to be dairy country. But my grandfather had horses, and that's what really introduced me to kind of this ag industry. But I have two little boys, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, that keep me running. So we live on part of my husband's family's old dairy. We purchased the land. We've got horses. We've got some cows that we dabble with. All the animals. My oldest son is like, I'm not going to stop till I have every single animal on a that
I want
required
one
is
of
required on a
everything.
farm. I want one of everything, two of everything if he could really. um, so they keep me running, but I am also the founder of Lowery and Company, which is a communications, branding, marketing, leadership consulting firm, as well as a coaching firm. So what I primarily do, I split it in two segments. So I do a lot of strategy work with clients. We sit down, we really look at brands, their communication strategy, what's going to get them to the next level as far as a consultancy. And then on the other side, I do a lot of the creative. So once I sit down with those brands or those entrepreneurs or those leaders that just really need that push, they can also work with me on a day-to-day basis where I actually help them implement what plan we've created. And then from a coaching aspect, very similar in I'm here to ask the hard questions. I'm here to walk alongside you from a branding, marketing, business perspective, leadership perspective. Um, as far as like my target audience, I'd like to say that again, just kind of a range of people. I like to throw in kind of that motherhood, parenthood as well, because that is such a big part of my life, and that does affect our priorities and our strategy and how we go about our time. And so, um, I have that. I also have Rural Change Makers, which is a community that I have started. That provides a lot of educational resources and just that community feel where we can open up these conversations um, about time and knowing that something's right and putting the emotions and the words to the things that we're feeling and doing. And so I've really tried to cultivate that community for the change makers in rural America.
Oh, that sounds so good. I think that the strategy part is so needed because we don't always need somebody to tell us what to do, although that's the easiest route, right? Like, can you just tell me what I need to do? Especially me as a wonder. So, people who listen to other podcast episodes, I talk about the working genius a lot. It's that personality assessment slash productivity tool that kind of
Mhm.
helps you understand like what your geniuses are. My genius is wonder. My frustration is tenacity. So I have a lot of good ideas. I've thought through how to execute, but to actually execute is not something that comes naturally to me. I tend to get stuck there. And so having strategy sessions to talk out, here's my idea, help me bring this to life and complete the task. I think it is
Right.
so, so important. And I think that's why this topic of time management is important too, because I will spend all day planning. So I get stuck in the 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 phase of thinking things through, getting the plan set up, and then all of a sudden all my time's used up and I'm at the crunch time, I'm at the deadline and I've not
Mhm.
actually got anything done, although I've burnt up resources and time. So let's just kind of dive into what is time management. Like I think a lot of people have an idea of what the definition is, but to you, what does time management actually mean?
Yes, definitely. And I want to say you're not alone because I'm in the same boat too. I ask myself, I'm like, I'll go down rabbit holes and I'm like, okay, wait, stop. Let's reassess. Um, but I think that my definition of time management starts there is being aware enough to tell yourself to stop when you start going through those down those rabbit holes and really just like all these ideas burning the resources and saying, okay, let me be aware of the time that I have. And I think that's the first step because, we just go, 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 go. And that's the nature of life. But let me stop and actually be aware of the time that I have. And then really just like I said, I'm going to use the word strategy a lot, but just like what I've been doing, for example, being the beginning of the year and really reassessing what I'm trying to do with my businesses and how much time personally I want to be spending with my family and that kind of thing. And really managing that time is sitting down and just like brain dumping a lot of what I want that ideal life to look like. And then putting those pieces together of what do I actually have to do. And so once I kind of have that overarching plan, I don't want to say that it's like very strict because like you said, life gets in the way and we have to be able to pivot. And so once I kind of have that overarching plan of what my time needs to be spent on and what I want it to look like, that's where I can go back and say, okay, if I want my life to look like this, where do I need to actually be spending that time? And then where's that awareness to be able to stop myself when I go down those rabbit holes and figure out how to redirect my mind. And I'm kind of just rambling now, but time management, it's going to also pivot depending on the season you're in, and seasons can change very quickly. And so I think that's something to keep in mind too. Like what I plan out now for the whole year is not going to be the same thing in next month or, by the end of the year. And so I think giving yourself grace with that and being able to look back and reassess. And I think that's why like that overarching goal of what you want your life to look like is really important for you to be able to come back to without having to be so strict on yourself.
When you take the time to plan out your day, right? Like that's being proactive, that's being
Hmm.
intentional of assigning every hour the activity. And when I think of like back when I went through Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, they're like assign every dollar something, like put it in a category,
Hmm.
whether that's in groceries, whether that's in an extra mortgage payment or debt payment or a savings account, like assign every single dollar. And I almost feel like assigning every I don't wanna say minute because that's a bit much, but, like,
Yeah.
every 15 to 30 minutes or even hour or even portion of the day, morning, midday, afternoon, like, kind of chunking it out is at least the right step of just kind of getting intentional, but also knowing we can be flexible, right? Like, I always say I love to plan, and I also like to have free time, but I plan my free time, right? Like, I plan to have free time in my calendar. I heard a quote a while back that said, "Activity doesn't equal productivity."
Oh, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
I
repeat
mean,
that because that one is good.
like,
So, act yeah,
I'm, like, mind blown, like, let's sum up the whole podcast.
mic drop, I'm done. All right, thanks for joining. Yeah, activity does not equal productivity, and I had to like, there was so many mindset shifts around that for me because I'm like,
Mhm.
but I was always told to look busy and like do something, right? Like I remember growing up, and I've talked about this before. If my mom is listening, I'm gonna call on a hold. But I remember growing up, and I'd be like laying on the couch one evening or in the middle afternoon or something, like during summer, and I'd hear my dad pull in the driveway. I'd jump up and like go do something, like pick up toys or vacuum or do the dishes or something to look busy, like to be productive. And I remember like that's been ingrained in me. And I don't think that it's a bad thing to be busy because I also know, like, where idle hands lead you, right? Like, there's also
Oh,
another
yeah.
quote that idle hands are the devil's handiwork. And so, like, being busy, staying busy is good. And so I kind of struggle with both of those um mindsets or perspective. I don't know what you would call that, but I kind of struggle
Yeah.
with both of those points because it's like,
It's
is there a happy
mentality.
medium?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, mentality. Yes, exactly. So I do struggle with trying to find like the happy medium. And one of the topics that you're going to be covering at the summit is margin in the middle. And so
Mhm.
I would love to hear your thoughts on that. I mean, how do you navigate the feeling of needing to be productive, yet everybody's telling us that we need to prioritize rest? Like, is there a happy medium?
Oh, I think there is, but I think that again, it's seasons of life and just really working through that. So what came to my mind when you said that was I see it a lot with my kids now, with my 5-year-old, like you said, like there are a lot of things ingrained within us that now that we're starting to put words to and we're starting to recognize and no blame on the generations previous, but like we just have the knowledge and the education and the resources to know a lot more about, our nervous system and how we operate and our brains and stuff. And so I struggle with that with my kids. Like I'm like, I don't want to give them so much to do to where they don't have that creativity time and they're not I want them to be bored in some aspects of it, but then also teaching them that it's okay when you've hit a wall to sit back and rest. And so I think, you know, that's how I've been approaching it is what grace am I giving my children and what am I teaching them on how to handle like all of the busyness and the pressure of the world of we have to be constantly going versus the flip side of we have to be resting and we need to be doing this this and this. And to me it's almost like the persona of rest has become busy work. Like the way that people preach rest and like you have to do this, this, and this, there's almost like a to-do list to it now. And it takes the whole purpose out of what rest really looks like. And
Oh,
so I do think there's a middle ground. And, for me, I am very rooted in my faith. And so that really guides me in kind of having that middle ground when I feel like I am getting too busy and I'm letting the noise of the world step in. That's where I take a step back and really focus on the Lord and my Bible studies and, what am I really trying to accomplish? And he has been very faithful in leading me in that way. But I think just for me, finding the margin in the middle, in addition to that, just from you know, a faith-based standpoint, but also just like a doing standpoint is having kind of that overarching look, almost like a vision board of what I want my life to look like and what that I actually have to do for that to happen. Um, and so just keeping that in my head at all times really helps me say, okay, you know, is this the strategy? Is this the plan? Is this busyness actually accomplishing anything? So I kind of have
oh,
questions and it's something that I'm going to incorporate in my presentation at the AgriMind Summit of like questions that I ask myself on what productivity actually looks like and where I'm headed and how I implement those. And then questions that I ask myself when I'm feeling the stress of the busyness and when I know I need to take that rest. And so I think having those kind of guidelines in place mentally for myself that helps me be aware of when I need to kind of step back and come back to the middle when I'm going one way or the other.
it's so good. I love how you used your kids as the example around like we want them to use their imagination. So we kind of like want them to get bored sometimes, not
Hmm.
just fill their brain with busy noise, right? Like that's something that we hear as parents is like if you just leave the TV on all day, you're not encouraging the play, the imagination, and that is critical in forming their brains and how their thoughts are formed. But then I
Hmm.
look at from a manager standpoint in the corporate world, and let's just say we're trying to lead a team. What's the message that we send to our employees, to our teammates, to our peers around busy work versus rest? Like, we don't want them to be burnt out, but do we want the same for them as we do our kids, like, where we want them to be bored so they use their imagination? And part of me wants to say yes,
Mhm.
because that downtime may be just the ticket for them to say, I need to really think about these processes and procedures and evaluate what I'm doing is working. And if they never have that time to slow down enough, they'll just, it's just go, 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 go.
I've been on both sides of it. I've been in nonprofit, in corporate, and I just yes, like, the expectation there is constant. Just, look busy, like you're
Perform all
saying,
the
look
time.
busy. I
Yeah.
I remember, you know, my boss, like, we would hear him when he wasn't in the office all the time, but we could hear his boots clicking on the floor, and we're like, "Oh, he's here. We need to pull something up on our computer. We need to make sure we look like we have something in front of us that we're doing." And, I do think that dulls the creativity. And coming from, the way my brain operates, obviously a lot of what I do, is very creative work, and I know when I start to shut down. And I'm kind of in that mode lately. I've been going through a lot of pivots within my businesses, and so it's created a lot of extra noise and busyness, and so it's kind of dulled that creativity. And so one thing, honestly, that's what I was doing before this call was I am at a local coffee shop, and I just kind of sat here with my notebook, and I put my phone away. I didn't open my computer, and I just made myself sit here and try to just doodle and write whatever came to my mind, and ideas and that kind of thing. And I think that that's so refreshing, just to give ourselves time. And it may that you have to schedule that time. That may be part of your overarching plan, but if you do, I think you become so much more productive. I don't think the definition of rest has to be we're just sitting on the couch watching TV. Like, this morning was a form of rest for my brain to get those creative juices flowing by just giving myself the space and time, to brainstorm and to think of ideas and flesh out something in my head, or of how I'm trying to word something. And, you know, everybody listening, they may be in the corporate world, they may be sitting in the cab of a tractor, but you can find that time. It's going to look different for everybody, but I think it's essential to kind of schedule it within your day, within your week, um, to give yourself that creative, flow. And really, and even if you're not in a creative line of work, um, what could you dream up if you had that time to actually just sit with yourself? And I think, you know, this is one thing that I've had to work through in therapy. Like, a lot of people, myself included, did not want to give myself subconsciously the time to sit there and just think, because then we have to face things that we're not
Mhm.
ready to work through. And
Okay.
so and I think that's where a lot of people's busyness stems from. Like I said, myself included, for years. I didn't want to make myself just sit, because then that meant that I had to face relationship issues and things within that I was going down this path, like, from a professional standpoint, that it was just easier. It was easier just to sit and take it instead of actually working through it and knowing that I needed to make a pivot. But when I finally did give myself that time, wow, like, just my whole life changed, and it continues. And I think that's a continual process. We're always going to have something that we need to sit with and work through, depending on that season.
Okay. I got goosebumps when you were talking just now. When we slow down long enough for it to be quiet and you're alone in your thoughts, yeah, that can be, for some people, that can be scary as heck. I don't wanna face those demons. I don't wanna have to work through the thing, because that is hard and that is painful, and it means I'm gonna have to take action that is scary and intimidating. But on the contrary, you've got folks like me who my cup gets filled when I have time to sit and think. Being that wanderer, it fills my cup up to sit and think. And some people are like, "What are you talking about?" My husband is that way. He's like, "What do you mean you could just sit around and think all day? Like, what are you thinking about?" And I'm like, "Nothing and everything at the same time." Like, I don't know how to explain it, but I love to think. I do. I love to sit and think, and it fills my cup up, and so going off and having quiet time by myself sounds like the best day ever. And then I know that there are other people, like what you just mentioned, where it's like, I need to go do something. If I'm in the
Mhm.
tractor cab by myself, I will go insane. I will have a breakdown because then that means I have to I'm thinking and then I overthink, and then now all of a sudden I'm having a panic attack, and like everything just feels so heavy, and I want to block it out. I want to
Yeah.
pretend it doesn't exist. I want to ignore those challenges or problems. And I
Mhm.
think that's why it's so important to go to therapy, to have a place to get that out and not carry it around with you. I think there's so much power in therapy.
You know, you mentioning both sides of it, I think too, that's another thing that's a season of life because I've faced both sides of it where, right now I do want to sit and think and create um, and then I've been on the flip side where it's, you don't want to face that. But like at one point when I was driving back and forth, I was in the car for 2.5 hours a day, and there were days where I would just sit with the radio off. Like, that was my time to think, and so, I think you could say that in whether you're traveling, you're a salesman, you're in your truck all the time, that's a good time to schedule that, but I think, seasons of life are going to bring that forward, and it's not ever gonna be balanced, like, it's always going to be changing, and when you have that awareness by going to therapy, you can kind of start to anticipate that within yourself when you notice those signs, and you can take action, like you said, um, to kind of help steer you if you're going down the wrong path or if you are starting to go up the right path, like, how do we keep going down that path?
I think that's why I like the word time mastery better than I like the word time management. Time management also like kind of feels like my time is managing me. Like, yes, I know I'm supposed to manage
Mhm.
my time well, but that feels like work. That feels like a task, and tasks
Well, it's very
drain me, right?
restrictive.
It is, like, if we're talking about, like, the working genius again, I feel like I've talked about that a lot today, but let's just keep on the track. People who have tenacity are driven by checking stuff off of a list. And so
Mhm.
if you have tenacity as one of your geniuses, it may energize you and fill your cup up to have the checklist, right? And so, like you were talking about
Right.
earlier, people who, let's just say you're going to meditate as a form of rest. Okay, I got to get the mat out. I've got to get the right music. The lighting's got to be just right. I've got to put on clothes that aren't going to like restrict my belly when I sit down so I can breathe better. Like, that's so much work, and next thing I know, 15 minutes has gone by, and I've not relaxed or taken a deep breath at all, and that is just not helpful for me. And so, like, it is a
Yes.
checklist, but the person who's checking that stuff off the list, that portion may have been more helpful and energizing than the actual meditating part, and that's fine. Just the awareness around that, right? And I think that
Mhm.
that's important to note, but I also, like I said, I like the term time mastery better than management because management feels like work to me, whereas mastery
Mhm.
feels like learning and it feels like awareness and hope, right? Like the hope that
Yes.
doing well at something. It's almost like a positive, optimistic outlook for me when I use mastery. And I also feel like that's me mastering my time, not managing my time. And there is a difference, and I don't know why,
Right.
but those words are holding some emotion for me. And so call it whatever you need to call it, I suppose. But I feel like mastery, that lens almost feels better than management. What do you think about that? Am I like off my rocker today?
No, you're not on your rocker because I'm thinking the same thing. I mean, the mastery just feels, like you said, so positive. Like it's something that you can't, when hear management, time management, I feel like I'm going to fail at that. Whereas when you hear
Oh,
mastery, it's like
yes.
something that I can't fail. I'm going, no matter what, whether I do it right or not, I'm still going to learn something. And I think, I mean, just whether you call it management or mastery, looking at your time, I think that's like a whole mindset anyway, is there's no way to fail at it. But if you're getting better every day and you're learning something about yourself every day that you work through this and gaining that awareness, then I mean, you're up and up. Like,
Mm. Oh, that's so good. I loved that. I almost thought of like those like monks or ninjas. What are they called? You know where they're practicing like it's got to be like on like the ninja movies. Do you know what I'm talking about? Why is my
yeah,
brain not
the
working?
nunchucks.
Where they've got like the long wooden poles and they're just like,
Oh yeah,
huh,
yeah, 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 yeah.
huh.
Yeah.
What are those called? I can edit this part out. Don't worry.
I have no
Um,
no idea.
but you know they're all in like red robes and like it's
Yes.
just it's the same movement over and over again and you're just
Hmm.
mastering it. And there isn't, yeah, you may get like a new color of belt or robe or something and like leveling
Hmm.
up, but what is that called?
Fighting
Like a
sticks. That's what we're gonna call it.
samurai. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about?
I think that has a blade, a samurai, but I don't know. I know what your point you're getting at, though. Well, okay, so
I'm gonna cut
I
this
know the point.
whole thing.
The fighting sticks.
You know, the fire guys. Oh my god. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, all right, you're gonna have to leave some of it because you just triggered something. The muscle memory part.
Okay, fine, I'll leave this in. Oh my god, that's embarrassing.
The muscle the muscle memory part just that made me think of something. So in one of the Bible studies we've been doing, we were talking about when Paul was arrested and he's being beaten and tortured, and he's still singing praises of the Lord. And there's an earthquake and all the gates are open, and the jailer uh, is going to harm himself. And they're like, no, don't. We're all here. And then he falls at his knees and says, I want what you have, pretty much. And so, one of the things that we were discussing is how, when you put yourself in their position, they were marched to the streets, they were beaten, they were shackled, they went through all of this torture, and yet at midnight, they are still sitting there praising the Lord. And so, the thing that stood out to me for that is like they didn't just get there. They didn't just go through all of that and just decide to praise the Lord. That was muscle memory for them. So they practiced over and over again to where that would be their response no matter what they were facing. And so I think that we can apply that here in the more we practice our time mastery, the more that we practice giving us ourselves that space to really face things and work through things and be creative, the more it's going to become muscle memory. And so you're going to look back, a year, 5 years down the road and realize that what you thought was difficult to implement and learn how to master this is not going to be as difficult anymore. And you're going to automatically go to it. And I think that's just how we continue to grow and we continue to learn.
Yeah, that reminded me of something that Greg Kruger talked about a couple episodes ago, when he was on, and he was saying, like, this is habits, this is memory, like, you
Mhm.
have to practice it. And he was talking about breath work, obviously, but he also
Mhm.
mentioned how he has, like, a list of daily success habits that he has his clients go through, and I don't know exactly what all they were, but it was just showing up and practicing it and recognizing you're in practice mode still, and that you're still learning, and you're still improving, and you're still mastering. I'm not saying you have to master, you're not a time master. You have time mastery skills, which means you're constantly adjusting, tweaking, having awareness around what's working, what's not, and that's going to change seasonally, right? I think of it as
Mhm.
seasonally within the agriculture industry, right? Like planting season versus and harvest season are different than our winter months or our summer months. And we were talking about this before
Mhm.
we hit record too, and today's your wedding anniversary, and I had said mine's in a couple days too, and she's like, who are we to get like who gets married in January? I was like, people who work around seasons. And how like I was trying to find dates where the majority of my family could make it to our wedding and there wasn't planting or harvest or whatever in the way. And then of course we faced a blizzard instead. It's like there's always something that you have
Hey,
to. Yeah.
you didn't sweat in your dress.
Yeah, that's a
That's all
fact.
that matters.
That is a fact. Yeah, but I mean, I just think of like, like, yes, in life we have these seasons, but then, adding in kids or adding in aging parents, right? Like I look at my
Mhm.
mom and dad who are taking care of their parents, and it's just like there was a season of life where they were off doing whatever. They had, they were empty nesters, and now they're taking care of their parents. Or seasons in our business, right? Like for example, holy cow. So it's the middle of January right now, and I have 3 speaking engagements in February, and then we have the summit right after that in March, and I am the busiest I've been in a while. And so, like, there are seasons in my business that
Mhm.
do go off of not the planting and harvest seasons within agriculture or the branding of cattle in agriculture, but winter conferences in agriculture. So, like, for me, my busiest time is when all of the conferences are going on because I'm doing a lot of speaking engagements. And so the rest of my year, I plan out the capacity of how many coaching clients I have, how many times I'll run the AgriMinds Live program. But during this time of year, I'm not doing any of that. One, because we're just coming off of holidays and we're starting off the new year. But also, this is the busiest speaking engagement time for me. And so I'm doing a lot of traveling, and I just cannot add those other things to my plate. So there are seasons in your business too. So we've got kids that we're trying to go around. We've got,
Mhm.
and like their ages. We've got parents. We've got businesses that have seasonality, like our farming operations and our businesses. And then we've also just got seasons, within our lives of growth, right? Like who I was 7 to 8 years ago in that season of my life. Actually, let's go back
Mhm.
a little bit further. 15 years ago, before I had kids, I wasn't married. I was still traveling. I was going out and having fun at the bars,
Mhm.
hanging with friends, doing whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. I didn't have any responsibilities. That was a different season of life for me. Whereas now my priorities are changing. I don't have a need to go out and party. I like could get drunk off of smelling a glass of wine these days. And I just don't feel like that's a priority for me anymore. My
Mhm.
priorities are my kids and my business, and I don't have a need for that. And my thoughts are different. I've grown as a person, and the way
Mhm.
that I view the world, the way that I view politics, the way that I view religion, the way that I view relationships are so different. And there's a seasonality for that too. And it's all, if we're staying on the faith talk track, there is a time and a season for everything. And even as
Yes.
painful as they are, seasons of grieving, seasons of love,
Yes.
seasons of busy, seasons of slow, like, it's all important, even though some of it's not as enjoyable as the other, it's all important and it will all teach us something. And so when you master your time, I'm not necessarily talking about Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 and how to be productive in your work. I'm talking about, are you mastering life? Are you mastering your time? Are you showing up with intention? Are you where you need to be when you need to be there? Are you with the people that are important to you? Are you giving them the best of you or the rest of you? Right. And that's something that I think so many of us don't think about until after a tragedy happens.
Mhm.
There we talked about this on the episode with Colleen when she was talking about therapy of like most people don't come to see a therapist unless something bad happened
Mm.
and they need somebody to talk to. I was a parts girl at our local John Deere dealership and nobody came to visit me when things were going well. They only came to me when things were broken. And it's like, had you come to see me for your routine maintenance and bought those belts before
Right.
mowing season started, when you knew that it was starting to get dry rotted, you wouldn't be in the situation you
In
are
this
now.
position.
And so I know what it feels like to have somebody come to you only when something is going wrong. And so I just like,
Mhm.
I pray for those folks who are therapists because I
No,
don't know.
no,
I would
I
carry that
agree
emotional baggage.
completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they have to definitely train themselves how to separate that. But a couple
Yeah.
points that you made that I wanted to hit on is, talking about not just the seasons that we face in agriculture, but just the seasons of life. I think uh going back to kind of my earlier point of like having those check-ins with yourself to narrow down those priorities is essential, in as each season starts to shift so that what your priorities are, and it actually just triggered something that, my grandfather used to say that not everything's gonna stay the same, like, that's the whole point of life is for things to change, and your priorities are gonna change with it, and that's not a bad thing, because at that point, I really viewed it as change was a bad thing, like, we didn't want things to change, but again, looking back 15 years ago, like at the person I am now versus then, um, just my whole world is different. And I think that just checking in with yourself on those priorities, um, with those season shifts is so important. And, I mentioned it before we started the recording. I have been in that season right now of really reevaluating, um, those priorities for myself. So my grandmother has been very sick, and where we live, my parents, my family does not live here other than her, and so I've been kind of her primary go-to caregiver, and she's been in the hospital 20 plus times in the last 6 months, and I've been there with her every step of the way, and so that season and that experience has really made me take a step back and look at what my priorities are in business, in life, where I want to be spending my time. And yeah, it really does suck for those counselors that, if someone comes to them and they're at this point, kind of like that bottoming out point of, what has to pivot and change. But also I think that is such a growth opportunity for the person experiencing that, because my 2026 looks completely different already than my 2025 did. And yes, it's been a grief process, to let go of some of those things that I once was so passionate about, invested in. But the outlook is going to be just the little bit of it that I can see is already so much more. And I know it's going to continue to grow there. And then the other point I wanted to make is when you're in all of this, like the whole point of life is to grow and change. So give yourself grace. Like you're not going to get it right every time. So be sure to carry that grace with you, as you are learning and growing. As long as you can take those lessons and apply them and get better the next time that you're trying to prioritize something, that you're trying to juggle, I think that that's one step further in the right direction. So give yourself grace.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. I still to this day, tomorrow I'm actually double booked. Um, I think that I run
Well,
my
I did it to you
calendar
last
so
week,
well.
not
Yeah,
intentionally.
I think that I have my calendar so just I mean, it's color coded, it looks
Mhm.
great, right? And tomorrow, I thought I had a 30-minute call and then a 30-minute call, and then the girl that I booked the 30-minute call with is actually a 60-minute call, and I'm gonna have to tell her, like, "Hey, I only have 30 minutes because I can't move the other call because I've already moved that call, like, 5 times." And so it's like, I don't like showing up like that as a
Yeah.
business owner. That doesn't feel good to me, that doesn't feel professional to me, but life and I've been saying this a lot lately because Greg said it a while back, and now I can't stop using it. So here we are. But it's true. Like it's this is stuff happens, right? Like whether we want to or not. And I think the first time you and I were going to record, we had recording dates back in December, and I think like I
Yep.
was trying to get into the dentist, and the one time, the one day that they were open was like the one time we were going to record. I was like, so I mean, like it's fine. And so I think
It
one, giving yourself the
happens.
grace to say like I'm going to have to make some adjustments even though it doesn't let me show up the way that I want to. I don't feel professional doing this, like, it's part of it, but then also giving other people that grace too, right? Or, like, I remember one time,
Yep.
I had a phone call with somebody and, we get on the call and I could tell she had been crying, and it was like, I don't know what, like, do I ask? Do I ignore it? What do I
Mhm.
do? And I said, "Are you okay?" And she had told me that her son got in a wreck the night before, and so, like, they were in and out of the hospital all night, and I was like, "Why are you on the phone with me? Go take care of your family."
Yep.
And she's like, "I just didn't wanna cancel our call because 'cause I've been really wanting to get in contact with you and la da da da." I was like, "Go take care of yourself, go take care of your son. We can talk again another day." And it like, I was in my mind thinking, "I moved a lot of stuff to make this happen, and, like, my calendar is really full at that
Mhm.
point," and so it's like, that was like, part of me wanted to be frustrated, but then the other part of me is like, if I were in her shoes, like, I would not wanna be having that phone call with me. I would want to be taking care of
Right.
my kid, getting some sleep because I'd been up all night, and, like, honestly, she wasn't in like, the right state of mind to be having that kind of phone call with
Right.
me anyway, and so it's like, I've done that before too, of just like, "I'm just not here with
Mhm.
you," like, that
Yep.
sucks, but I'm just mentally elsewhere, and I'm not showing up as my best self, and I feel like sometimes it's a cop out, right? Like, if I'm looking at, like, how my grandpa would've, what he would have thought about me saying, like, "I'm just, like, not mentally prepared for this call, like, I'm just not here." I'm like, "What is wrong with you? Like, get it together. Get your head out of your" And so, like, part of me, like, is like, "Oh, this new millennial age, they're so emotional and they're so, like,
Yep.
work." But then part of me is just like, I'm not showing up my best self, like, and so it's like, give yourself grace and give other people grace too during those situations when they're trying to make it all work. I mean, it's just
Yep.
that's such a trick. I don't have the right answer for that, but anyway, I
I don't
digress.
either, but well, this is something that I've had to unlearn myself, and I'm gonna be my number one critic. You're not gonna criticize me more than my head, the voice in my head is doing it. And so, giving myself grace, but then, for other people, giving others grace when they're in those shoes. And I think that's such a learned thing. It really, in my childhood, like, that was such a thing, and then going into the roles and the jobs that I had of I think it ties back to kind of that busyness, like, um, that learned just aspect of you have to be on at all times. And so if we're giving ourselves grace and we're giving others grace, then I just think, finding that balance is so crucial. Not just for our time management, but for how we interact with others and what our businesses look like. Because, like you said, life is life. And especially when you have young kids that are sick, and when you are taking care of elderly, parents or grandparents or whatever that looks like. And so, yeah, just giving grace all around while still being a
Yes.
hard worker. Balance that.
Yes. You're gonna be sharing a lot of this at the summit though, right? So tell people a little bit about what they can expect at the AgriMind Summit when you're speaking on the 25th.
Okay, so I am combining kind of like a keynote versus very practical workshop style. You're going to hear a lot about my story, a lot of what I've walked through, being in corporate, being an entrepreneur on my own, just living in a rural area where the resources are less, and how I've really built those businesses up, and the what I've walked through, and how I've used my priorities and my time, and really implemented those systems. But then I'm also going to be doing more of a workshop type of I cannot stand to be at a meeting or a workshop or a conference and not walk away with something that I can actually try to implement. And so that's going to be my big key is I want whoever is there to walk away with questions that they can ask themselves. And then I hate to say a to-do list, but just kind of things that they can reassess and go have that quiet time and some things to check off of um how do I restructure my time? How do I prioritize? What does that look like tangible things that they can walk away with and tailor to themselves because it's not a one size fits all. And so that's very important to me to be able to give those tangible things that can be kind of tailored and geared toward everyone. But another big thing is I really want to open up that dialogue. I want to have within my session questions, and I really want to talk about everybody else's personal. So I'll have a time within that too, to really kind of open up the floor and how can we walk through together the tangible things that you're getting, and apply those to your personal story, and let's talk through and work that together. So kind of a three-part thing, but I am so excited.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be beneficial for the attendees, and honestly, the time mastery or management that I was working through when I was planning the AgriMind Summit is I've been to conferences where there's no break in between speakers. It's like speaker number 1 for 45 minutes, and then speaker number 2 for
Hmm.
45 minutes, speaker number 3 for 45 minutes, then it's lunch. And so it's like there was no time in between each session to, like, hearing somebody, like, there was no
Hmm.
noise to just be like, "Let me digest that for a hot second," and
Yep.
before the next speaker jumped in, right? Because it was like, "Here's this topic," and then but you never had a chance to digest or process, and then here's the next speaker, and so it was like 3 speakers, 3 topics jammed shoved at you, and then you got lunch, and of course, that's awkward, right? Because then you're in the line and
Yep.
getting your buffet, and then you sit down at the table, and so you're, like, trying to talk about what you just learned while also shoving food in your mouth, and so I was like, "How can I not cram a ton of stuff into this event to check boxes?" Because there were so many things that I
Yep.
wanted to shove into this event. I mean, if I was thinking about all the topics, I was like, "Oh, I wanna talk about that, I wanna talk about this, I wanna talk about that." But there's only so much time in a day, and so
Mhm.
I purposely I mean, you can look at the agenda, it's on the AgriMinds website, and I'm looking at it over here too. But there is time in between every single speaker, so I'll go on, do my problem-solving,
Mhm.
decision-making workshop, and then it's a 15-minute break. Then Greg's gonna come on, do his nervous system regulation, self-leadership conversation and session. He's gonna do a full-blown breath work session, and then we do move into lunch. But I feel like there's gonna be enough space where we're not rushing between each session to be
Mhm.
like, I wanna really process and just feel or think and not switch. Like, I think about,
Yep.
like, when people were talking about TikTok and how you can watch a TikTok video and it could be so funny and you're laughing your butt off, and then you go to the next video and it's like this puppy got ran over, and then so you're like, "Oh my god, that's so
You're
sad."
crying.
And then you go to the next 30-second video and it's like somebody is happy again, and it's just like you're switching from emotion to emotion to emotion, and it's just your
Mhm.
brain's not meant to do that. Like, your
No.
body was not meant to switch from emotion to emotion that drastically, that quick, every 30 seconds, you know? And so I really wanted to space out these topics. And then Lauren's going to come on after lunch, and everybody has an hour and a half. And whether we, as the speaker, fill that hour and a half with content or we give people that space to just sit and digest, like the venue that the AgriMind Summit is at Retreat 21 in Marysville, Ohio, is very much so kind of it's outside of town, outside of the city limits, and so it's this old farm. There's places to walk around, and if you wanted to go like walk on a trail, sit by the water. I don't know how cold it'll be in March in Ohio, but we'll see what the weather decides to do. It could be 80, it could be 6. I have no idea. It's really up in the air. Welcome to the Midwest. But I mean, so like that's something that's how I was trying to show up intentionally with the summit. And then we're gonna do an afternoon break, and then we'll have a speaker panel. So it'll be you, Greg, Lauren, and then Thomas Eisenberg. He was on a couple episodes ago talking about the farmer's perspective around mental health and talking to somebody and some tools and resources that he has personally implemented in his operation. And so I thought that that would be a nice addition to the panel to say, "Hey, I'm the farmer that these people are trying to talk to you about." And so I'll be facilitating the panel, and that's like, it's from 2:45 to 4. Help me do math. But anyway, it's
Yeah,
gonna be quite
hour
a
and
long
15?
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
we're not rushing through anything. And so if you're listening to this and you're coming to the summit, bring your questions. Like this is the place. Like I said, we're
please.
we're capping the event at 50 people because we want it to be a place that you're not just some body in a conference room of 700 people. Like you're going to be there, you're going to be heard if you want to be. If you don't, that's okay. We're not going to force you to, but it's like that's how I'm trying to show up intentionally with the summit. So just kind of like real life trying
Mhm.
to slow things down, to give you places to reflect and say what's working in my life and what's not. And then we're going to have dinner and appetizers and a whole networking event that evening. And then Alex is going to be speaking that next day. So Greg and Lauren will be talking about kind of like, hey, how do you implement some of those things we talked about yesterday, right? And
Mhm.
that's another thing.
Yep.
We go to these conferences and we have all this information, and then we don't ever plan time to
Yep.
use it later on.
So that is one thing that I'm looking forward to, even just for myself. I cannot wait to for the panel and to hear everybody else speak and just take that away and just have that kind of reset time. I think that's what you're trying to do is like this is a reset. Like let's a hard reset. Set,
Yeah.
um give yourself the space and to process and really have key takeaways that you can implement. And that's what I would
Mhm.
love for those who are attending, that's why I wanted to have that kind of time to ask questions and work through together because I want you to feel like you're walking away with, okay, I kind of have the start of a plan and now I have the resources from the people who I can, follow up with and the relationship there with those people to implement it and ask questions and really flesh it out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm excited too. And we have this form. So after you purchase your AgriMind Summit ticket, you'll be sent like an intake form that one just make sure are you allergic to anything? Do you have any restrictions? Like, like the standard event stuff, liability things. But then there's also a place for you to share what you're most excited about. And another question that says if you have a specific question for the summit panel, what would you want
Mhm.
them to make sure that they covered? Or if you had something unique that you wanted answered, there's a place to submit some questions for that too. And I would say the common theme that people have put in there around like what are they most excited for? What are they looking forward to? Why did you purchase this ticket? Is they're looking for a place that, yes, gives them information because they're always willing to learn. They're investing in themselves
Mhm.
personally or professionally. Like we're covering both, right? We're covering personal topics and professional topics that you can take back home to work or to life. And so a lot of people are saying, like, I'm looking to invest in myself and learn some things, but I'm also looking forward to just connecting with other people that are
Mhm.
open-minded enough to have conversations. We're not necessarily coming to look for a solution. We're looking to feel
Right.
heard and understood. And if we can get recharged and reset at the same time, plus learn all of these cool resources and tools and tips, like it's the best of both worlds. And
Mhm.
so, like, that's really my hope for people at the summit. And like I said, I just wanted to share how I was trying to incorporate being intentional with time and prioritizing. Because again, I really wanted to shove a lot of topics into this, but I
Mhm.
had to prioritize what I thought were the best and I've got a priority matrix in the time mastery toolkit. It's on my website on the homepage, but I'll see if I can get a link to put in the show notes for this for people who are looking for frameworks or something like that. I
Yeah.
can send that over. But Alex is going to be bringing some more frameworks to the summit, and it's going to be so, so good. Any final thoughts, comments, or information that you want to share? Can people follow along with you? Can they work with you? What can you share with us?
Yes. Yes. Please follow along. Alex J. Lowery on all platforms, and then Real Change Makers Co. on all platforms. Both are the same for the websites. I am taking one-on-one coaching clients to really work through all of these topics that we've touched on and more. Very growth minded, and then I'm also always willing to jump in for strategy calls, any kind of creative services, but all of that information can be found on my website.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join the AgriMinds podcast and just kind of walking us through what being intentional with our time could look like and how like, everybody struggles with this. I just think that that's a big thing that people just want to hear. I'm like, I'm not the only one who has a challenge with this. It just makes people feel a little bit more relatable, but I'm looking forward to your session too. I mean, I know this is something I personally struggle with. I mean, I could have all of the tools in the world, but it really comes down to what do you do with that information? And if you don't know how to interpret data, the data means nothing. And I feel like you're going to help us make it make sense. So I'm looking forward to it. And if there's any questions or people want to learn more about the summit, the link is in the show notes, caceybol.com/summit. So thank you again, Alex, for joining me, and I will see you in March.
Thank you for having me, Casey.